There is a simple gospel that has come to dominate the moral landscape of our modern world. It is a quiet religion, preached not from pulpits, but in our schools, our workplaces, and our homes. Its central, and often only commandment is this: above all else, be a nice person. We are taught to admire and to emulate the saint of this new religion. It is the person who is endlessly agreeable, who never makes waves, who is a master of avoiding conflict at all costs. They are praised for their easygoing nature, for their ability to compromise, for their profound inoffensiveness. They are the perfect team player, the supportive friend, the compliant employee. In a world that is terrified of friction, the nice person is held up as the ideal. They are seen as harmless, and in our modern dictionary, harmless has become a synonym for good, and so we try our best to follow this gospel. We learn to smile when we are angry. We learn to agree when we disagree. We learn to say yes when our every instinct is screaming no. We become experts at swallowing our own needs, our own opinions, and our own desires, all for the sake of maintaining a smooth and pleasant social harmony. And for this we are rewarded, we are liked, we are seen as good. But in the quiet moments, after the performance is over, a strange and unwelcome feeling can arise. The quiet resentment that follows after you've agreed to something you didn't want to do. The hollow feeling of having betrayed your own beliefs to avoid an argument. The slow, creeping realization that you are being overlooked, taken advantage of, and undervalued precisely because you are so reliably, so predictably nice. This dissonance creates a series of uncomfortable questions that we rarely dare to ask aloud. Why does being nice so often feel like an act of self-abandonment? Why does it feel so inauthentic, so draining, so much like a performance? Is there a fundamental difference between being a truly good person and being just a nice one? What if the answer to that question is not just a simple yes, but a truth so uncomfortable it threatens to upend our entire social code? What if the relentless pressure to be nice is not a moral imperative at all, but a sophisticated psychological trap designed to keep you small, compliant, and predictable? This video is an investigation into a dangerous and heretical idea, that what our culture celebrates as niceness is very rarely a virtue. Instead, it is often the most socially acceptable, the most praised, and the most well-disguised form of modern cowardice. We will argue that the true motivation behind your chronic niceness is not a deep well of kindness, but a profound and paralyzing fear. It is the fear of conflict. It is the terror of disapproval. It is a desperate addiction to being liked. And that hiding behind the gentle, smiling mask of the nice person is the most common and sophisticated act of psychological cowardice of our time. Our modern confusion, our tendency to equate niceness with goodness, stems from a great intellectual collapse. We have taken two profoundly different concepts, kindness and niceness, and have mashed them together into a single, blurry, and ultimately useless idea. To break the spell of this hidden cowardice, we must first take a philosophical scalpel and carefully separate these two terms. We must understand that one is a genuine virtue, born from strength, while the other is often a sophisticated social strategy born from fear. Let us first conduct an anatomy of niceness. Niceness is, above all, a performative act. Its primary goal is not the creation of genuine good in the world, but the management of one's own social image and the avoidance of personal discomfort. The motivation for niceness is almost always external. It is a reaction to a perceived social pressure, and the fuel for this reaction is fear. It is the fear of disapproval, the fear of being disliked, the fear of rejection, and most powerfully, the fear of conflict. The nice person is not acting from a place of internal, principled strength. They are reacting from a place of deep social anxiety. Their behavior is a constant, exhausting calculation. What can I say or do in this moment that will cause the least amount of friction? How can I make myself as agreeable and inoffensive as possible? This is a perfect modern manifestation of what Nietzsche called slave morality. It is the morality of the herd animal. The highest value for the herd is the absence of danger and the safety of the group. The nice person has fully internalized this value system. Their agreeableness is a form of camouflage, a way to blend in seamlessly with the flock and to ensure their own protection. Their constant deference to the needs of others is not a sign of selfless love. It is a sign that they have subordinated their own will to the will of the group. And because it is motivated by fear and the need for approval, niceness is often profoundly inauthentic. It requires you to hide your true feelings, to suppress your honest opinions, and to present a smiling, agreeable mask to the world, even when you are filled with resentment and disagreement on the inside. Now let us contrast this with true kindness. Kindness is not a performance, it is an expression of inner strength and integrity. Its primary goal is the genuine, long-term well-being of the self and of others, even when, and especially when, that requires creating short-term discomfort. The motivation for kindness is internal. It is a potent combination of courage and a deep, unsentimental love. A nice person will tell you a comforting lie to avoid an argument. A kind person will tell you a hard, painful truth that you need to hear for your own growth. A nice person will say yes to a request they don't want to fulfill and will then resent you for it. A kind person has the strength to say a clean and honest no, protecting their own boundaries and, in the long run, the integrity of the relationship. A nice person, when faced with injustice, will remain silent, because to speak up would be to create a conflict. A kind person is capable of a righteous, sacred anger, because their commitment to their values is stronger than their fear of disapproval. From a Jungian perspective, true kindness is impossible for a person who has not integrated their own shadow. To be truly kind, you must have access to your own capacity for aggression. You must be a person who could cause harm, who could be confrontational, who could win the argument, but who consciously and deliberately chooses a more compassionate path from a position of strength. A person who has no access to their inner aggression is not kind. They are simply harmless. And harmlessness is not a virtue. It is merely the absence of a capacity. Niceness, then, is a shield used to protect a fragile and fearful ego. Kindness is a sword, wielded with skill and discipline, to defend a core set of values. The nice person is terrified of their own shadow. The kind person has learned to hold it in their hand. This distinction between niceness and kindness is not an abstract theory for me. It is a lesson that was carved into my own character through a long and painful apprenticeship in the art of being a nice person. For many years, I was not just a practitioner of niceness. I was an addict. I was not addicted to a substance. I was addicted to being liked. And the primary symptom of this addiction was a constant, chameleon-like performance of agreement, a desperate and exhausting effort to be whatever I thought the people around me wanted me to be. I remember one specific evening that stands out in my memory as a kind of final, humiliating exam in my own cowardice. I was at a dinner party with a group of people I deeply respected and wanted to impress. They were intelligent, articulate, and successful, and I, in my deep desire for their approval, was on my best nice guy behavior, nodding, smiling, and agreeing. The conversation eventually turned to a topic I was genuinely passionate about, a subject I had spent years thinking about and had formed strong, deeply held convictions on. As the conversation flowed, one person in the group, the most charismatic and respected of all, voiced a strong and eloquent opinion that was the complete and total opposite of my own. As he spoke, I could feel a growing sense of dread in the pit of my stomach. I could feel my own truth, my own conviction, rising up in me, demanding to be spoken. But another, more powerful feeling rose up to meet it. Fear. A cold, paralyzing fear of disapproval. My heart began to race, my mouth went dry. I could feel myself physically shrinking in my chair. The voice of the nice person, the voice of the coward, began its frantic, desperate whispers. Don't say anything. Don't make waves. They will think you are arrogant. They will think you are foolish. Just be agreeable. Just be nice. Survive the conversation. And then, the moment of truth arrived. The charismatic speaker, having finished his point, turned to me and said, "What do you think?" The entire table looked at me, waiting. And in that moment, with the full weight of my own cowardice pressing down on me, I betrayed myself. I did not just remain silent. I actively and dishonestly agreed with him. I found a weak, intellectual way to validate his point, to signal my allegiance to the consensus of the room. "Yeah," I said with a convincing, thoughtful nod. "That's a really interesting way to put it. You've given me a lot to think about." The moment of potential conflict passed. The charismatic man smiled and nodded his approval. The conversation moved on, and I was safe. I had successfully maintained my persona as a nice, agreeable, and thoughtful person. The walk home after that dinner was one of the longest of my life. The feeling was not one of relief. It was a profound and sickening sense of self-loathing. I had not kept the peace, I had sold it. I had traded my own integrity for a few fleeting moments of social comfort. The approval I had so desperately craved now felt like acid in my stomach. Everyone at that party liked a person who did not actually exist. I had been a ghost at the table, a hollow echo of the opinions of others. And the one person in the world whose respect I had completely and totally lost was my own. And that is when I finally understood the truth. My niceness was never a gift I was giving to other people. It was a desperate and selfish strategy I was using to manage my own crippling anxiety. I was not being kind by avoiding the argument. I was being a coward. I was prioritizing my own pathetic need for comfort and safety over the truth, over my own convictions, and over the possibility of a real, honest, and challenging human connection. The smiling, agreeable mask was not a sign of my virtue. It was the very face of my fear. To awaken to the truth of your own niceness, to see it as a form of fear, is a deeply unsettling moment. The path forward is not an easy one. It is a quiet and courageous rebellion against years of your own social conditioning. This is not a guide to becoming an aggressive or confrontational person. It is a guide to becoming an honest one. It is the journey of untangling your self-worth from the approval of others. It is the difficult and ultimately liberating practice of developing the courage to be disliked. The first and most fundamental act of this rebellion is to practice the clean no. For the person addicted to being liked, the word no is the most terrifying word in the language. Our yes is a constant, desperate bid for approval and a way to avoid conflict. Therefore, when we must say no, we do it uncleanly. We deliver it wrapped in a thick, protective layer of long, rambling excuses, justifications, and apologies. We do this not for the other person's benefit, but to manage our own anxiety about their potential disappointment. The clean no is the antidote. It is a calm, firm, and simple statement of your boundary, offered with respect but without apology. Instead of a long story, you simply say, "Thank you for the offer, but that doesn't work for me." Or, "I appreciate you thinking of me, but I'm not able to do that." That's it. No further explanation is required. The first few times you do this, it will feel like an act of profound social violence. Your nervous system will scream at you. But with each repetition, you are building the single most important muscle of your own integrity, the muscle of self-respect. Once you have begun to establish your boundaries, the next practice is to speak your truth, even when your voice shakes. This is the art of moving from the passive act of saying no to the active act of expressing a dissenting self. You do not have to begin by debating politics at a hostile family dinner. You must start small, in low-stakes situations, to build your tolerance for the discomfort of disagreement. Start by disagreeing about a movie with a friend. Instead of the agreeable nod, you can say with kindness, "Actually, I didn't really enjoy that part." In a work meeting, when everyone is agreeing with a plan you think is flawed, you can offer a small alternative suggestion. The goal, at first, is not to win the argument. The goal is to simply survive the feeling of temporary social friction. You are training your nervous system to learn a new and vital lesson, that your survival does not depend on universal agreement. With every small, honest opinion you express, you are proving to yourself that your integrity is more valuable than a fragile and inauthentic piece. This leads to the final and most crucial mindset shift. You must consciously redefine your goal from being liked to being respected. The lifelong project of the nice person is to be liked by everyone. This is an impossible and ultimately self-destructive goal. It forces you to become a shapeless, characterless mirror, endlessly reflecting the desires and opinions of those around you. The new goal, the goal of a person of integrity, is not to be liked. It is to be respected. And the most important respect you can earn is your own. You must come to a profound and unwavering understanding that being respected requires you to be a person of substance, a person with clear values, a person with a backbone. And a person with a backbone will inevitably be disliked by some people. Those who benefited from your lack of boundaries will dislike the new you. Those who are comfortable in their own intellectual conformity will dislike your challenging opinions. You must learn to see the disapproval of certain people not as a sign of your failure, but as a sign of your success. It is the proof that you have finally stopped hiding and have started to become real. We began with the gospel of niceness, the modern commandment that tells us to be agreeable, to be pleasant, and to be inoffensive at all costs. We can now see this gospel for what it truly is. It is not a guide to a virtuous life. It is a training manual for a specific and socially celebrated form of cowardice. It is a philosophy that encourages us to hide our authentic selves, our true convictions, and our real power behind a smiling, fragile, and ultimately dishonest mask. The niceness born from a fear of conflict and a desperate need for disapproval is not a virtue. It is a strategy of self-preservation that comes at the ultimate cost, our own integrity. True kindness is a different beast entirely. It is not born from fear, it is born from strength. And this is the final crucial distinction. A truly kind person is not a harmless person. They are a formidable person who has their own power, their own aggression, and their own shadow, under a conscious and deliberate control. They have the capacity to be disagreeable, to be confrontational, to be difficult, but they choose from a position of strength and wisdom when and where to deploy that power in the service of a value that is higher than mere social comfort. The journey out of the prison of niceness is not about becoming less kind. It is about becoming, for the first time, truly and courageously kind. It is about having the strength to trade the shallow and conditional approval of the herd for the deep and unwavering respect that you have for yourself. The path from being a nice person to being a good one is a quiet rebellion against your deepest fears. If you are ready to stop hiding and start living with a courageous and authentic heart, I invite you to subscribe to this channel. And now, you must take your first small step. Share your commitment in the comments below. What is one small, honest opinion you have been afraid to share that you will finally choose to express this week? Your voice is the first weapon in the fight for your own integrity.